Right, hello everyone. Welcome to episode 24 of the Walls of Westminster Down the Pub podcast. I am your host, Peter Simpson, runner of the Haryan Gláeddyv channel and contributor to Walls of Westminster. I'm joined tonight by Patrick Timms, editor of Walls of Westminster. Hello, Patrick.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. And we also have with us Peter Barnes, contributor to Walls of Westminster and, of course, Talk TV. Hello, Peter.
Hi everybody, how's it going, guys? You all right?
Very good, thank you. And yes, once again, this is the podcast where we bring you the tedious conversation that tends to happen nearer the end of a night at a pub, which finally, that's actually kind of true this week again.
Yeah.
Not
look
quite. Yeah, not quite. I mean, we were said this off air yesterday. It doesn't feel like a lot has happened, but quite a few major things have happened, such as we've got a major war in Iran, which we did go through the hows and whys last week, and well, effectively now they've got a new Ayatollah, or Supreme Leader, sorry, who is apparently still alive, in a coma and missing a leg.
Yes.
But Iran is still...
And an eye. He misses an eye as well.
Oh, right.
Yes, yes. Someone's... a joke that I once heard, actually, just the other day, somebody said to me, "Oh, isn't it rather funny that the new Ayatollah is somewhat legless?"
Well,
you've got I there as well. You see, I get it. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yes, again, it wasn't my joke, but I will take credit for it now because they're not here.
But yes, it's one of those wars where I don't know. It seems like America and Israel thought it would be a lot easier than it is, and now it's looking like they're not going to reach their objectives. And beyond that, you've just said it off air. I can't remember the name of it. Strait of Hormuz.
Hormuz, yes.
So close.
The single most important bit on the map that everybody pretends they've heard of for the last 15 minutes.
Yes,
that's my favourite thing about geopolitics. If you can point to it on a map, I'll listen to your opinion. Until then, maybe not.
it's one of those where it's like whenever there's a football injury, like a foot injury or something like that, and somebody will always decide they've now become an expert in metatarsals. Despite the fact they don't
my favourite was over COVID, and everyone became a virologist.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Literally overnight. Years of training, education, all this kind of stuff. Everyone's now an expert in virology.
No, you just need herd immunity, mate. Yeah, it's
exactly.
like
you need to go to uni. Yeah.
Well, you might in fact refer to it as herd stupidity.
Oh, very nice.
Yes.
Very nice. Very good.
Or the madness of crowds, I think they call it.
But so Iraq,
yes.
So we know that there has, the former regime has fallen. We don't know exactly, we don't know exactly what it's going to be replaced with, except that now we have heard more news about, because I think now this was, who was it? Was it somebody's grandson or son or grandson or something?
It was Khomeini's son. Yeah,
his son. So
the last Ayatollah, it was his son. Yeah.
So what we've done is we've got rid of the dictator as such. And who is it next? Oh, it's his son. You might have thought he'd arranged this himself, but again, it would appear that the US in particular, and with Israel only too willing, is now taking matters into its own hands. And this is not...
I'm going to stop you there because it's the other way around. Israel went first. America is not leading this. This is the thing I find quite interesting. Sorry, it's just one of those things I hear it all the time, and I'm like, Israel did the major bit first. America only went in, and Marco Rubio came out and said, "Oh, well, they were going to go in, and we look a bit silly if we didn't join them." And I was like, that's not what you want to hear from the the State Department. And this idea that this is Trump's thing, I don't think is right, but it is this idea that they haven't achieved their objectives. Trump's got exactly what he wanted: rid of the Ayatollah and a weakened China. He has never cared once about the aftermath. Never cared about it. He's not interested in regime change or anything like that. He wanted rid of the bad guy and a weak China. And the rest of it is like your problem.
But do you not think then that perhaps there was a strategy to let somebody else go in first in a perfectly behind the scenes coordinated manner and then it can look like they went in first, but actually they only did so because they knew they were going to have your support because you already pre-agreed it, in which case it was more of a US thing. You see, it's a tricky question as well.
Yeah, the one to look at is Saudi Arabia in a lot of this, because they were begging the Americans to go in a week before. They were screaming at the Americans, you've got to get rid of this guy. You know, the thing that separates this out from Iraq, where people keep comparing it to, and I understand why, but it's not right, because nobody wants Iran. Nobody wants the Ayatollah there. None of the Gulf states want it because they want to shift to the West for money, tourism, financing. They want to enter the world, basically. And, you know, China has been shown that they're not willing to actually get involved and defend Iran. And more importantly, Russia just barks like a dog and writes a very sad letter, which I thought was odd. I don't know if anybody saw that. Putin's letter to Iran after the death of the Ayatollah, it was rather heartfelt, a very Hallmark card-esque, I have to admit. But, you know, where's the unstoppable force of the Axis powers? Where's any of that? Oh, yes, it was nonsense. And also, where are the proxies? Hezbollah, Hamas, all these ones. Nowhere. The idea that Iran could just summon all these forces and take out the Middle East has been shown not to be true.
Okay.
A lot of it has been smoke and mirrors. They're still capable, of course they are, but they're not the big boogeyman a lot of people were led to believe. And I think it's actually been interesting to watch a lot of the more institutional geopolitics people backtrack more than watching politicians pretend to know where the Strait of Hormuz is.
Well, and to be fair, the same thing happened with Iraq. You know, boogeyman, 45 minutes, nuclear weapons, etc. Was it true? No, it wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, having said that, I mean the Strait of I'm gonna get the name wrong of it again.
Say hummus. Just say hummus.
Hummus. There it is. There it is. I know it's like hummus, but
it's taken through a Greek, then, weren't you, with hummus?
Well, maybe a Turk, yeah. But
you sound like my grandfather. It's in that bit.
Oh yeah, that bit that everyone's talking about. That's they call it a strait, but it's a very big meander. That seems to have that seems to have completely crippled. Well, not completely crippled, but it has had a major effect, especially with I think most ships go toward Asia, China.
Yes, 20% of the world's oil passes through that bit, and at its narrowest point, it's about the same width as the English Channel.
Oof.
It is a very, very important bit of the world.
So Iran have just thrown a load of mines in there that have struck some ships. So to which
I think 6 service personnel have died today. I think, if I remember correctly, at time of recording, of course.
Do we think this is a scorched earth strategy?
It
from
looks,
who?
Well, from Iran, I suppose. It does look like Iran lost the Ayatollah, and basically every general just went a bit rogue. What else would they do?
It was rotted to the core. The regime was rotted, which is the same thing why Russia didn't take Ukraine in a matter of weeks. The thing that they said they were spending a lot of money on, it was going into other people's bank accounts.
But,
that is essentially what has happened.
What happens when we send aid to Africa? Or certain Africa?
Oh, yes, yeah. Or we send somebody to Westminster.
Yes, but you see, this is the problem, because what you end up with is, I mean, it was the same in Iraq really when we went in, and then we or they did it themselves in the end, and they got rid of Saddam Hussein, and or Sadat insane, as I happen to be aware, was the internal American term for it. But the trouble is, when you take out the only person who, while being corrupt to the core, was actually keeping control just about of all of these other groups or insurgent groups and or just people with their own interests, well, now there's nobody.
Yeah.
And that's always been a Western foreign policy failing of understanding.
That's 100% true. 100% true. But the thing is, when the US put 3 carrier strike groups, which is basically 3 little nations of warships outside the Eastern Mediterranean, those little groups think, do you know what, we're not going to lob a stone at this lot because they can lob a boulder back. That's been why the Trump Armada was there, literally, to put these groups down, to say, don't even think about it. You're like a fly, and we've got a very big SWAT. And this is why that overwhelming force has been so important, to keep the proxies down. And
it reminds me of that line from Yes Minister or Yes Prime Minister, one of those. reminiscing about the colonial days. Do you know, we used to just send in a gunship.
Yeah. And my favorite one at the moment is, why don't we just send a water cannon? This country's obsession with a water cannon. Send the army and a water cannon and we can fix anything, apparently. It was literally somebody on talk the other day said, just send water cannons. I was like, it's a desert.
It's not one that too. It's not a riot. It's a war.
Yeah, I know.
Does anyone remember when Boris Johnson was mayor of London, and that was one of his initiatives, wasn't it? We need the water cannon.
I think that's actually how the conversation came up, actually, because we're talking about the Al Quds thing, which we'll get to later. But he was just said, just use the water cannons. Any amount of riot, water cannon. The country loves it.
I mean, well, in fact, being him, I should correct you there, as he corrected other people, that it is apparently the plural is cannon.
Oh, is it?
Oh. And funnily enough, like I say, being him, that was, when he was actually challenged on this, his primary response was to correct the pronunciation.
Oh, I love that. And yet people voted for him.
Incredible.
Again.
Who knew that if you voted for a clown, he'd act like one? Yeah. I always found that quite funny. But yeah.
I will.
Sorry, Peter.
No, it's all right. I'll say one highlight for me from the Trump administration from this, which I saw on Twitter about 2 hours ago, was Pete Hegseth doing a press conference, and at one point he basically says, the Strait of Hormuz, it's open, but only if Iran don't put mines in. It's like, but they have done that.
I know. Also, I love how we got rid of all our minesweeper ships. Just a few years ago, we thought, do you know what? We don't need those. I mean, the fact that HMS Dragon, as I've called it, because it's dragging on, it's not actually a drag. I saw that. I was like, that's brilliant. But what's really damning about this from the British perspective is the idea that they didn't know is untrue. Because how do you think the planes got to the Middle East? Oh, yes, they used British airspace. So we knew what was coming. Also, 3 carrier jets across the Atlantic. Do you think they missed that? And we had these negotiations about using the bases weeks before all of this. And yet they removed personnel, they removed hardware, and then said, oh, well, we didn't know. It's the barefaced lie I find terrifying. And then the kind of Wallace and Gromit reaction is even worse.
Yeah.
Because he's looking more like Wallace every single day to me. It's oh, God, no.
I don't know if you've ever seen Flushed Away, but my girlfriend always says Starmer looks like one of the rats from that. Which I have seen as well. So on TikTok.
Somebody said to me he's got a very kind of mouse-like face, and then I can't unsee it. No,
it's hard not to see again. Yeah, but it's.
We see, this is the Tory line on this one is
confusing.
Well, yes, but also that I don't know who was this on Con Home who said this, basically that. What they're finding out is that governing is actually quite hard.
Yes.
Which
is terrifying, considering most of them were in government.
But they weren't prepared for it. There's another problem that comes in here. I've probably said this the last time round, that there is such a thing as having too many backbenchers.
Oh, yes.
That's definitely true, yeah.
100%. And I brought this up with Andrea Jenkins on talk weeks and weeks and weeks ago. I said, what are you going to do if Reform get this massive majority? You want all these individual people, all these kind of forthright, big personalities, and you have to try and whip them. Good luck to the person who has that job. Because Lee Anderson can't even handle 5. So I'm not going to lie, that's going to be a big challenge. The problem of a big majority is just catastrophic because you have to watch all of it all of the time. You have to really whip at that. Well, also, that Theresa May have had to do.
Do you remember Gavin Williamson's strategy of having a tarantula in the office?
Oh, Kronos.
Yes.
It was called Kronos. Yeah. Everyone said, what's more terrifying? When I said, what's more terrifying, the tarantula or Gavin Williamson? I said, no, I'm not answering that question.
I'll answer that question. If you need a tarantula in your office, then you're evidently not terrifying enough yourself.
Yes, where's Peter Mandelson when you need him?
Yeah.
And we were going to move on to that, weren't we, Peter S?
I've done this before.
We were, to be fair. That is a very good segue. Just before we do, I do want to say that the other humiliating thing I found about Iran is that we've now found out we basically don't have a navy. The French had to come in and save Cyprus.
That's the most embarrassing bit of all of this.
Yes.
The French.
The French coming in to save
of
our
all
backside.
countries. The Greeks, great, don't mind that, but the French,
by far.
Admiral, Lord Nelson spinning on top of that column.
Well, quite so.
He must be.
Quite so.
Rule the waves.
Yeah. Well, as you say,
we're stuck in the paddling pool.
Yeah. Well, the Dragon's still in it. Yeah. We have aircraft carriers which aren't going there now for some reason, but if they were, needed a French escort. So yeah, I mean, this 5% that's supposed to be going 5% of GDP to defence. All right, I'll give them a chance, but you've not even got the starting blocks really for a defence force. So there we go.
I always say that this crisis has not made Britain an embarrassment. It has shown what we've known for a long time in a very public kind of de-ranking. That's the thing now. We're in the room, but we're not running the room anymore. And it's laughable that we could even hide behind that. And yet, it's easy to turn around. You actually just have to, build
make an army.
But like literally get, rid of net zero, independent energy policy. That's the first thing we have to do. And then, so the Strait of Hormuz is not going to cripple everybody that wants to turn the lights on after 8 o'clock. And then, you literally start to build things. This 5% is what we should have been doing about 10 years ago.
Oh, absolutely. And I don't, not to give anything away, but I know from first-hand experience we have the technology. So, but that's quite enough of that's quite enough of that.
Yes.
Moving on to Mandy.
Let's talk about Mandelson.
Well, if I'll just introduce that one, then so obviously we've had more of the files released, and in fact, just as both of you were saying. Just earlier, it's another embarrassment on the world stage. The fact that we appointed this man in the first place. I was brought up, and Peter B, I think you're 4 or 5.
35, despite looking 58, but yes.
Yes, thank you very much. But we remember New Labour. I know Peter S does as well. But we remember the various Mandelson scandals. And now it turns out that the Prime Minister was aware, had been told of his various proclivities, and appointed him anyway. I want to say, perhaps, by default? Sort of like,
for me, I want to know what did Mandelson say. When presented with all this evidence in that interview, what did Mandelson say to convince Keir Starmer none of it mattered? Because that must have been the greatest, most elegant argument ever created.
He never talked to Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer just sent Morgan McSweeney and someone else who was a friend of Mandelson in. Starmer,
Tweedledee and Tweedledummer.
Yeah. Starmer literally never talked to him. I don't even saw the evidence.
It's actually
one of those cases then where what has actually happened is somebody's been, and I said this so many times before, not just in terms of Mandelson, but somebody's basically been appointed by default.
Oh, yes. If you read all 147 documents, that is the prevailing theory, is that, he's already got this job anyway. Nobody seemed to say, and this is where Starmer will get away with it, because in those documents, it doesn't say explicitly, don't hire him. It says, this is reputational risk. This is you taking on this. It doesn't explicitly say it. And to his lawyer brain, that is an excuse. And I bet you any money, that's the defense he'll go with. He says, I was never explicitly told. And then they'll blame Morgan McSweeney, who already, resigned away, but is very much still running the show behind the scenes, apparently. But yeah, it's a whole load of mess.
Yeah.
Okay, that's an interesting one. Still running the scene behind the scenes. But then, yes, he was, by all accounts, it's a passive verb, isn't it? He was resigned.
Yes, I love that. He was resigned. What's the odd line? Deputy heads will roll.
Absolutely.
That's the BBC answer. A deputy head will roll.
Yeah. I mean, well, that because Morgan McSweeney was one. I can't remember the other one's name, but I think he was the old head of communications. Which, as we always say, there's a head of communications in the Labour Party.
Matthew Doyle was
Yes.
the one that was involved in all of that, and the one that's just gone was the fifth
Yes.
head of communications.
Yes, they've
To be honest, there's only so much they can do. It's like a hairdresser; they're not a magician.
Yeah, it's not the
You know.
yeah, they're not. As you say, they're not genies. They're not God.
Yeah.
They can only work with what they've got. Which,
Yeah.
if you're any of the Uniparty's head of comms, I do not envy that position. However, if you're Green or Reform, you have so much to work with.
So much to work with. But we might get onto the Greens a little later. But I tell you now, what was interesting, how Number 10 reacted was the right thing to do. They got rid of McSweeney, brought in a crisis comms guy, and split Number 10 into dealing with the Mandelson files and then dealing with everything else. And so you split the departments up because there's a police investigation, there's a lot of procedure and all that kind of stuff. So you need someone that knows that bit. And the person they got in is actually quite good. What was I found interesting was Jonathan Powell was the voice of reason in the government about all of this. He said, well, isn't it odd that Mandelson's appointment got rushed through rather quick? If he is the voice of reason in any room, leave the room. Because, like, for me, that guy needs his own investigation, in my opinion, and I'll say that as my own comment. But I have to admit, if he's saying maybe Mandelson's a bit dodgy, well, despite being part of the whole SOFA, style of government under Blair, he was Blair's chief of staff. He knows all about Mandelson. Yeah, I was like, I mean, come on. The guy in the Wetherspoons knows you don't hire Peter Mandelson to any job that requires trust and competency. He's been fired 3 times.
Well, I mean,
I got caught 3 times. He's not even a good crook.
Yeah, well, this was all in the dossier, and it all came with a big note. Reputational risk here, by the way. Or Jeffrey Epstein, this guy. He was put away for trafficking a young girl in 2009, whenever it was. Mandelson said that he didn't do this. We know this is a lie now, by the way.
Yes.
Reputational risk.
Reputational risk. That's so civil service, isn't it? That's so civil service.
There's a sort of counterpoint to that, not to disagree as such, but just to present the counterpoint is that that is the legalistic mindset, is that you can't prove it, or if nobody's going to try to prove it, then as far as we're concerned, it didn't happen. So did the sun rise yesterday? Well, I know it did because I saw it, because I was up that early to go for my goddamn MRI scan. But can I prove it to you now? No.
And just because the sun rose today doesn't mean it's going to rise tomorrow either. I have to admit, which is I find interesting. Where's David Lammy in all of this? He wasn't really mentioned, despite being the foreign secretary who appoints ambassadors. Very oddly missing from a lot of this. Was David Lammy actually intelligent for 20 minutes?
Well, what it tells you is that the foreign secretary signs off on appointments, which is not the same as making them as such.
That's a really very, very good point. Yeah, is the foreign secretary now just a defunct position?
No, it's. I don't think, to be fair to the present government, and I'll
name who it is.
I'll wash my mouth out later. Is the point? But, to be fair to the present government, nothing has changed there. This is the way it's always been.
Yes, that's very true. Yeah, I was watching on, I think it was a podcast, so they made this point, say you can blame Starmer for a lot of this, but he is a product of the system, not the person that destroyed the system. So basically, he's inherited a lot of this, but even then, it goes all the way back to even New Labour. If you want to go even back to Major, that this idea of just an ever-evolving, mess and just hope nobody catches you is not new, and it is the way that they kind of turned it up to 11. I think that's the thing with Starmer, is that he came into office on this promise of being better, and he wasn't.
He's
I mean, yeah.
Is this worse than Boris Johnson? I think so.
I think it is.
Yeah,
this is in particular. Yeah. Boris had cake.
Boris had cake and a few perverted MPs.
Yeah, Starmer appointed a friend of a paedophile to Washington.
Yeah, that's probably worse.
It's one of those where this is where the Restore lot get off and the advance or get off, but yeah, on the uniparty point of that kind of thing. They're no better than each other. The trouble is that they all seem to think that they are, and then you end up with, they get into power, they find out that, as I said earlier, that governing is actually quite hard, and the system is pretty much set up against you. I am aware.
It's easy to say I would do it better after the fact.
Yeah.
Hindsight is 2020. That I will say is very annoying from a lot of people who haven't been in or around government ever say, well, why don't you just do this? It's not that simple. And also, it just doesn't move that quick. That's the one thing the Labour Party found out very fast. Government moves very slow. Sometimes for the right reasons. I don't mind when things are slow in terms of dealing with the mortgages and, people's jobs and stuff like that. Take your time, get it right. But, paperwork and meetings and, the bureaucracy has to be curtailed. It has to be, because, it's just astounding to me that 147 documents have been released so far in the Mandelson files. That's even half of it. How are there so many documents for one appointment involving so many people that don't really seem to have made a decision? That's our big problem.
Because Starmer never talked to him. Starmer just seemed to have signed off on it and didn't really have any input. And Tim Shipman on Twitter saying, if you're shocked at the fact that Starmer never even talked to Mandelson, just look at my article where Starmer doesn't do anything because he doesn't have.
Well, it's a lot easier.
Imagine if he did.
Well, easy. That's the thing. It's very easy not to do anything. It's very easy. And as I was saying with Peter S. before, at some point, as in tech terms, we would describe this as minimizing your attack surface. So and this applies in politics as well. So it's very much a case of saying, right, okay, we're not going to do anything, or rock the boat. That's the best.
Rock the boat, yeah. Don't rock the boat, baby.
Yeah, so the boat has been presented as, Mandelson. Why Mandelson? Because he knows people.
This is what I've said.
Did,
I've said this. Yeah.
He
knows dodgy.
It's not. I don't mean so much necessarily he knows people over here, which he obviously does, but he also knows people over there.
Yeah.
And so you put the well, I suppose the cat amongst the pigeons, as it's now turned out, but
phrasing.
He knows people over there. He has the links. You see, he has the connections. So somebody will have looked at. It's almost like they ran it through an AI model or something.
It does have ChatGPT kind of vibes. I'm not going to lie.
It does. Yeah, it does.
Because he doesn't disagree with it, does it? So therefore,
as you know, when you prompt AI, if you don't give it enough information, it only knows what you give it. So let's just say there had been, let's call it ChatGPT, could have been Claude, could have been Grok, could have been any one of those, and I've used.
I doubt it's Grok with the Labour Party.
When you prompt it, you have to learn how to prompt it so that it has enough information to factor everything in, because anything you don't tell it, it doesn't know unless it decides to look it up by itself, but it can't think, it's a machine. So it can't do its own independent thinking. And what I would compare this to, just as we've all been saying, how the hell did this appointment come about? It's almost as though you asked ChatGPT, with prompting for Mandelson's credentials, such as they may be in his contacts over there, if you put him among a list of 3 or 4 people, who is the most appropriate person to be the next UK ambassador to the US, that's quite possibly what it would have come out with. And
I think you're 100% bang on. I really do. I really do think that has been the prevailing mentality. And nobody thought, do you know the guy that lied and, got fired 3 times and is, known as the Prince of Darkness? Well, your nickname is the Prince of Darkness. Maybe not the smartest move.
But you
know what I mean?
Like that. So it doesn't know.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, you wouldn't tell it.
That's my point. It's what you don't tell it that it won't forget. It's not going. Well, it will sometimes do its own research, but even then, that's only based on the terms that you prompt it with, which is why there's now a whole industry now of sessional jobs for people to train AI models by improving the prompting. And I've used it. Well, I don't like to say extensively because I personally feel dirty whenever I do it, but it's usually things
no. All my life is automated. My life is automated. However, I argue with AI more than I've ever argued with anybody in my life, and I argue a lot.
You should get out more.
I should.
No, I mean, seriously, I mean, I use it for things like correcting, why is this code not compiling? Oh, you've not closed that last for loop, something like that. But I don't use it for ideas. The funniest thing ever is when it disagrees with itself. And you say, okay, you should use this approach for solving that problem. And then I say, this didn't work. And it goes, oh, well, that was a bad idea. But this was your idea.
Your idea. That irritates me no end. It's like, don't make it out like it was my fault. Also, I love how we're avoiding the phrase, and Peter S., you might correct me, but it's garbage in, garbage out, isn't it? Is the phraseology. We're avoiding that and Peter Mandelson in the same sentence.
Yeah, that's all about statistics. Yeah, garbage data in, you get garbage graphs out and things like that. But one more thing about Mandelson, I'm pretty sure the old ambassador to the US actually recommended Mandelson as well. I think that will have been another reason.
It's interesting though. The new one, the woman, was actually, I cannot remember her name off the top of my head. She's actually was very well respected in America. She was actually very good at the job. I think she was like the deputy ambassador at the time. And, she was basically like, that was going to be her job. And then they put Mandelson in. And if I was her, I'd have said no. Basically worked your entire life to get the premiership job in British diplomacy. And you got sidelined for Peter Mandelson, the guy in Wetherspoons could have told you shouldn't have the job. Well,
if you don't want to disappear, you might just go along with it, won't you? To be fair,
yeah, that's very true. But I love how he wanted. Was it 500k?
He had the cheek to ask for $500,000, and even then, they pushed him down to a sweet 75 grand, which
70. Yeah, they said it was value for money.
Well, exactly. I think
the worst bit.
Yeah, I think half it was in lieu of payment because obviously of an early cut-off, and then made redundant. Here's redundancy pay. And basically, everyone thinks.
I have to point this out to people. He wasn't sacked. You don't sack an ambassador. You recall them, and then you withdraw them. You can't sack them. Then he wasn't sacked. So that was actually his entire point. He was going to take it to a employment tribunal. And realistically, I think he probably would have won, which is how ridiculous this is. Yeah. Because I remember when he was rumored to be getting some payoff a few months ago, when he was recalled, and everyone went, "Oh, but they sacked him." I was like, "No, they didn't, because they don't have grounds to. Being friends with the person at the time is not a crime. None of this had really come out. It's not a reason. You can have a private life." Now it's turned out to be a lot bigger, but at the time they didn't have grounds to actually recall him. So it was interesting how the Labour guy knew about employment law.
Well, I'll snip it on that one. Does anybody know for how long he was ambassador to the US?
Months.
From October.
Months. Just to kind of what you said about an employment tribunal, as to current legislation, you cannot take somebody to an employment tribunal, even if it were deemed to be necessary, unless you've been employed for at least 2 years.
Oh, it definitely wasn't 2 years.
Yep. Well, it definitely wasn't 2 years. So no, there would not have been a tribunal. And of any type, and certainly that legislation has proved to be a thorn in my side on one occasion. With an employer who I will not name, but certainly if I had been with them for longer than about 6 months, the way they got rid of me, I'd have taken them to tribunal. I think I would have won had I been there for 2 years, but I hadn't been, so I couldn't. See, it's just one of those things. I'm being I'm being an anal bastard, but that's something I'm good at.
Don't say that to Peter Mandelson in the same sentence.
Oh no!
I can make that joke. I'm allowed to make that joke. Thank you.
Okay, I guess I'm not, but there we are. It's like that
Oh,
thing they do
actually,
on.
I'll tell you what, I should have known this. Sorry, I've just looked it up. He became ambassador on the 10th of February 2025. That's my birthday. I do remember thinking this is a present that I didn't want. I do remember making that joke. I remember.
Do you know? There's one final thing I'll say on this point. Do you reckon that in fact it's what they were actually doing was getting rid of him? Now, chuck him over there. He can't do much harm over there. He knows the right people, which is true. He does. Not necessarily a very good way, but he does. And sometimes this is what we do in politics. Here's a way of getting rid of you. Now, why? I've said this before, but I'll say it again. Why is Sir Tony Blair? Why is he a Sir? Well, because he's not a Lord. Because we don't want to in Westminster. So the basic lesson is take this, now sod off.
Yeah.
You see? Why do we have Sir Sadiq Khan? I even wrote a piece for Con Home on this one.
Yeah, you call it the ceiling, don't you?
Yeah. There's the floor. Yeah, it's the floor and the ceiling is the difference. You still got the four walls, but is this your floor or is it your ceiling? Well, sometimes what you're being told is that this is your ceiling and therefore take this and now sod off. And then people who don't like them will be like, oh, why, yeah, he's been rewarded for failure and all of that kind of thing. No, in Westminster terms, and just like you were saying earlier, Peter B, about SW1 and what people don't understand about it, what it actually is you're being told to sod off.
Yeah, it's the theory and the reality I've very rarely met. Yeah. And I think that's it's a really interesting point. But again, it goes back to my problem of conspiracies and kind of that problem is competence. That would require a lot of very competent people to do something very competent. It's why conspiracies don't work in Britain.
Oh, Yeah, well, I'm never going to try. I'm never going to assume anyone in power's got any sense. But it's the other part of this. Why would you need to get rid of Mandelson? He's already a lord. And if he's in America out of the way, you're risking. They knew about the reputational risk because there were 140 pages telling them that there was reputational risk. So I don't think there was any. I don't think
there's at least one entire continent of people who we exported our problems to. I think we all know which one I mean. And
I'm not poking that bear.
No, what I'm saying is we sent our largely petty criminals over there and they developed an entire nation out of that. We sent our Puritans off to America.
Either way.
and look what they've done with that, you see? So we do have a history within our foreign policy of exporting our problems, and I rather suspect that this is what we were doing here. And then they can become their own problem. And then when it comes back, oh dear, true, but at least then all the dirt is on them and not on me. I rather imagine that is probably the advice the Prime Minister was given.
Yeah. Well, for me, the thing that's really going to hit Starmer on this is, why did you appoint a guy like that? It's now a question of his judgment and his character as a person. It's not a political problem. It's not an optics problem. It's a moral problem now, because Jeffrey Epstein was arrested and found guilty of having underage sex with a person the same age as Starmer's daughter.
Oh.
So at what point do you suddenly have to wonder, what were you up to as DPP? Because if this is the judgment you're showing him as Prime Minister, what were you doing when you were the nation's top barrister? You were deciding a lot of this stuff, and this is what you were doing. Well, I do have to admit, I think there's a lot of questions to now ask about his time as DPP, and it's annoyed me no end in that general election, thanks to Boris Johnson jumping in with 2 feet over Jimmy Savile, that we never got to take away that kind of crutch that he leant on. I was DPP. Yet nobody said, were you any good at it?
Well, I will summarize it like this, if you don't mind. You talk about morals, the Prime Minister's morals. Do they come in sections, paragraphs, and subparagraphs? If they don't, he doesn't know what that is.
True. Yeah, that's very true. Unless there's a post-it note saying, believe this. An executive summary of morality.
Well, I mean, talking of morals in the Labour Party, they now have an anti-Muslim czar, I believe, along with a anti-Muslim hostility guidance, I think it was. Which,
yeah, this is terrifying, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, well, it's quite clear to me. It's just obviously nobody wants to hear the term Islamophobia because it just means shut down debate and speech about Islam. So they said, "Oh, we'll say anti-Muslim hostility." The thing I noticed with this actually was they kept saying, "Oh, basically they're going to riff off the International Holocaust Memorial Alliance." Was it them?
Yeah.
We're going to riff off their definition. Their definition is one paragraph long, and literally, you just replace the word Jews with Muslims, it'd be fine. They didn't do that, though. They added 2 more paragraphs and said, by the way, this also needs to come with a load of asterisks that you need to read as well. To which I'm thinking, why are you going to this distance? And a lot of those asterisks were actually, we're completely defending free speech, trust us. You can actually criticise Islam and mock religions, and that just makes me think, okay, are we free to burn Qurans, though? Because we know we can't do that at the moment. So it's made it through. Unfortunately, I think it is going to make it through because, well, especially after Gorton and Denton, they're going to try and get a particular vote back. We'll say so.
Yeah. Well, I thought there's never going back to them, which I find hilarious. But this, they've got to love the little Labour Party that could. But I mean, this is where we are with this lot. But the thing that I predicted a couple of years ago is that this is starting to kind of lay the foundations for a total wide amnesty of asylum seekers. They're going to do a Spain. They're going to grant pretty much everybody on the list as some kind of amnesty. And they're going to grant them it just before the general election. I generally think that is where we're heading. And I think the reason they've turned it into kind of anti-Muslim hostility is what I call the tyranny of the vague. What the hell does that actually mean? What is hostility? What is, what is anti-Muslim? Can you criticize the UAE? Can you criticize all this stuff? Like, what are you actually meaning by these words? And I think this is the real danger, and this is why I don't think it's an accident.
Yeah, well,
because if you look at, say, right to a family life, sounds great. What do you mean by that?
Yeah,
it's
chicken nuggets. Yeah. It's well, on top of that as well. When I was reading through the definition of it, all I could think was, all of this stuff you're saying you're going to make illegal is already illegal. You already can't beat up Muslims because of their religion. You already have a hate crime on top of that if you do that. So what's the point of this? Because if you're saying, oh, your free speech is going to be protected, again, all this in theory, I should say, is all legal and illegal where you've split it anyway. So what was the point of this? Which everyone can see through it.
Can I just nip in on a story from, oh, God knows how long ago it was now. I was on talk and I said this live. This is when this poor boy, who was 14 years old, was killed with a samurai sword. And it was a samurai sword. I saw the picture, I can see it. And I am a blade wielder myself. I'm an aficionado, and I'm proficient with the blade. So it was David Bull's show actually, and
is this the one in the school?
I don't know. The point is that no, it was on the street actually. It was on the street.
Oh yeah, right.
You see, and
sorry, I got my British stabbings mixed up. My apologies. No.
And what I said, I clarified the law on this one. So at this point, Labour is still in opposition, and they had come out and said, "Oh, well, we will ban these kinds of swords." Now, I know the law on this one. A blade must be 50 centimeters or over and curved, so you can see what they're targeting there. In order for you in order for you to need a license for it, is the point. So the entire point around them saying we'll ban these, they were already banned. This man either had a license or didn't. But just saying we're going to ban these kinds of swords, without a license, whatever, they're already banned. Okay.
Yeah.
And so this was quite indicative of Labour thinking at the time, well, this shouldn't be going on. No, it shouldn't be going on, but we already have regulatory systems around that, and clearly they didn't work this time. Or they were circumvented, you see. So, but it's just, it is policy making on the hoof for that kind of thing. Now,
that's insulting to the hoof.
Well, so like I say, because I know about this stuff, I thought, right, I'm going to talk about this because I do it. You're on the telly a lot more often than I am, Peter. But
it's never stopped people from talking about things they don't understand.
Well, that's quite my point. Is that it certainly does help when you do actually know what you're on about now, doesn't it?
Yeah, particularly when it's stuff like this, because it's surprising how little people actually know about what the law on this stuff actually is. And this is the big thing about when people talk about freedom of speech in this country. We have freedom of expression. We never had freedom of speech. It's not a thing in our law. There is a nuance and a difference to it in the way that we have it. We're not America, for example. I wish we were. The First Amendment is the greatest thing ever written, but I don't trust any British politician to ever write that down and make it our law, my lord. But it is interesting that, when we talk about the kind of the way that this is going about, is it's using the guise of protection and safety to push more control. It is using, we're doing this for your benefit. We're doing this to protect people from harm. Again, what is harm? What is protection? Why do I need you to protect me from a word? We have to really get back to the fundamentals when we talk about this stuff, because the hate crime legislation, by definition, has failed. We have more of it than less of it. So if it was there as a deterrent, it's not worked. So what are we doing different? Oh, I know. Let's do what we always do. Let's pass some more laws, because we're going to look busy in process. That's what this is. It is busy work in process than tackling the problem of integration, of these kind of issues that are affecting our nation, because they don't want to talk about them because of, by-election results and all that kind of stuff. I'm afraid this is the dirty bit of politics, and it's all of us that pay.
And both you and I know that, it's not the only dirty bit of politics, but one thing one can say, point to here is the Online Safety Act, which is probably the best act of trying to look good that I can think of.
Yeah.
Are you about to defend the Online Safety Act?
No, I'm about to say, I have never seen more porn and more gruesome deaths on my Twitter timeline since that has been coming. So what was the point of it? It was supposed to stop people seeing, because I'm not verified my age on Twitter. I just use VPN usually if I'm desperate to see something, but just random pornography.
There we go. That's being clipped.
Random stuff on Twitter. It's not worked.
What it shows, and I'm going to bring in another thing here.
Yeah.
Is, so I've got a piece that I haven't published yet on the Equality Act of 2010, which was rushed through in the dying months of that government. And the point of the piece basically is to argue that you can't actually legislate against discrimination.
Yeah.
What you can do is pay lip service to doing that. But at the end of the day, if you are someone like me, for example, who suffers from seizures, and if you're not honest about that, they're going to find out pretty soon anyway. So let's say you have got down to the short list. You've got 3 guys, or indeed girls, but they'll probably be guys. Those kinds of jobs. Well, they probably
say it's 2026. You can't say that.
Well, I know I can't say that, but I'm going to say it anyway. With that said, if you want me to expand on that, I tend to find that women in IT, if they've been there for more than 5 years, they are damn good, because you have to be. I've worked with many mediocre guys in IT, because you can get away with being mediocre as a guy in IT, but you can't as a woman. Anyway, that's quite enough of that. But let's say you've got let's just say you've got to the last 3 people, and you've got 1 vacancy. One of them has been honest with you, as I would be, to say I suffer from seizures. So do we want the guy who randomly falls down every so often? Or do we want one of the other two who doesn't? Which means that because now you get to tick a box on the application form saying, yes, I have a disability. What is it? This is what it is. And the government at the time, and I think everyone's opinion on this will be unanimous on that one, thought they could legislate against discrimination. The reality is that laws don't change minds. Okay? And that's the point of the piece. And if you think that just because you brought in a law that you're going to change anything, then you clearly don't know your own species very well.
Yeah. And for further proof, let's just use the Supreme Court ruling on what is a woman. That has just been blanket ignored because it doesn't suit the political narratives. I think there's because we got into the habit of this country of, if I tell you not to do something, well, therefore you'd never do it. Well, therefore you'd never have criminals. It doesn't make any sense. Like you said, these people do not understand the human race. They don't understand people. And this idea of, we'll punish people and they'll not think, we'll get rid of this idea. When has that ever worked in history? When has it ever worked? What you actually do, and it's the same thing with cancellation, you make martyrs out of people. You make people bigger than they ever were, because what you do is you let them disappear into the darker bits of the internet, get a huge fan base, and then the next thing you know, they're everywhere, and you can't control them because you don't know what to do with them. There's so many examples on the left and on the right.
Well, I was going to say there's been an example over the past month. Yeah.
I know where you're going, but I'm going to keep talking.
Yeah, go on.
Yes, we can't get sued again, but but no, again, the thing is, I had a politics professor who always said that daylight is the greatest disinfectant. Show people how horrible somebody is, how horrible their opinions are, what they actually believe, and you don't need to cancel them. Society will just ostracize them naturally. When you tell somebody that's a bad person, the next question they're going to ask is, why? If you show it, most people, these days, will, say, well, I don't want anything to do with them. And the prime example of that is Nick Griffin on Question Time. You put him in a spotlight, Jack Straw, and when the BNP were on the rise, that's what took out the BNP. He was made to look like a moron. He was made to look like he had no idea what he was doing, and the BNP support fell through the floor pretty much by the end of that program. This idea that you make things go away by crushing them has never worked in any situation ever, and it is literally a government panicking because it's being pressured into doing something, and it doesn't know what to do. So therefore it passed a law that is wildly out of control and should be repealed. And that is the Equality Act. It's also a terribly written piece of law, but all of our laws are. It's like written by a 4-year-old on a sugar rush.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? It's the old line from Yes Minister, something must be done. This is something, therefore we must do it.
Yeah. Oh, well, we could have done something, but it's a bit too late now.
The thing is, it's on a serious note, I've said to people before now, Simon, who's not with us tonight, has witnessed me in seizure. Neither of you two have, as far as I know. Who wants to be that guy who didn't call the emergency services when he could have done, and some people might say should have done? I always say to people, look, there's no point in it. I've had the emergency services called on me 11 p.m. because I've fallen over in a pub car park. Don't do that, by the way. People make certain assumptions. Mate, I've had two. It's not that. Right, okay, you don't do that. And I've been more than that. I've been in hospital till 6 a.m, you see, because they won't let me out. But what I always say to people is, do not call the emergency services, please, because there's nothing they can do unless I stop breathing, in which case do. So those are the instructions. I mean, this condition has already killed me once. It can take me again, and it probably will. And this time I might actually be able to develop the basic level of competence to stay dead properly. only managed it for a few minutes last time. Possibly either our great maker or his opposite number. Well, maybe I tried to interview them, but they apparently couldn't stand
He
my
said no
company.
comment. Yeah.
Apparently couldn't stand my company for more than a few minutes. But there we are. My point being, nobody. With that said, though, like even my closest friends, I've been clear with them about this, but nobody wants to be that guy who didn't call when they could have done, and then obviously something's gone wrong. So when we relate this, I'm sorry to give all of that story, but when we relate this back to politics, when we look at things like the Human Rights Act, when we look at things like the Equalities Act, I think it's more a case of people being able to say, well, look, we did something about this. Wait, Theresa May, net zero, all of that.
Well, everyone net zero,
nobody can
also,
say.
Online Harms Act.
Yeah, that's another one.
Yeah. Remember, repeal the porn laws.
But exactly, nobody wants to be able to say, or to have to say, that I could have done something, and I didn't.
That's a really, really good point. I think it is that kind of fear of not acting is a big problem for governments, because obviously, what was it? Tory Blair said, the hand of history. He feels that, the thing is, in my head now, all I hear is feel is that Peter Mandelson's hand, and it creeps me out. But I have to admit, I do think though, if you want to broaden it out though, if you look at most of the data, particularly is more in America than here, but if you look at those people that identify as something that is not male or female on the job applications, they are less likely to get the jobs because employers don't want the hassle. Right. So in other words, by being more equal, they've actually made people less equal in a way.
And as I say at the end of my piece, if you think you can change, human nature, you evidently don't understand. But just by legislation, you evidently don't understand your own species. On the topic you were riffing on before, I think it's FOMO, isn't it? Really, that's what the young people call it, the fear of missing out. And politicians have FOMO. They do.
Oh yeah. Probably more so than anything else, because they're in the spotlight for it. They're the ones that will be asked, well, what did you do? You had the power to do something. What did you do? Particularly if you're in high office, the expectations is through the roof. But it is. That's why I always say, why on earth would anybody want to be a politician? I don't understand why anybody would want to, because that pressure to have acted, look at the Iran crisis now. That will be a big black stain against the Labour Party, the British government, Keir Starmer, all of it. And I'm like, that pressure is just unbelievable. Do you actually want to wander into that? No wonder they're all sociopaths.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I said it before. A politician's primary skill is in getting elected. Their secondary skill is in getting re-elected. Their tertiary skill, if you're bloody lucky, might just happen to involve being of some actual use once elected. That's how it works. It's an ego farm, and everyone knows that.
Yeah. Without a doubt. And it's out of control. It really, really is. And I always think it's funny. We're asking the people that broke something to fix something. I've never understood that. Everybody is just up to their necks in it, because the thing is, we're not declining, we've collapsed. In my opinion, I always say we're a collapsed state at this point. Everything is kind of working, but not the way it should do. And it's more like, oh, we're surprised that's still running, rather than that's actually how it's supposed to do it, what it's supposed to do. And I think until we understand that we've not got to stop falling, we've got to pick ourselves up, that mentality change is, everything's just going to be terrible for a very, very long time, because everyone keeps thinking that we're still falling. We stopped that a long time ago.
I've always said that things are going to have to get worse before they get better, and certain. But at the same time, look at the. I will end on this one. The stuff with the civil service. You can go all the way back 40 years. Always look at successful satire to work out what is actually going on. You've got Yes Minister, for example, and you've got Sir Humphrey. You've got the civil service. The fact is that a lot of people, for those people who are running the show, despite the fact that they're not supposed to be running the show, the reason they're doing it in their minds, is exactly the point that I've just made. That everyone knows that politicians are there to get elected and look good on camera and do whatever. So from the civil service's point of view, and I have many gripes to make with the civil service, but from their point of view, they are the last bulwark against.
I've said this a long time. They've taken over running the country because the people we put in charge of it don't know what they're doing. That is the reality. And the standard of our politicians is that bad that the people who don't have to worry about getting elected have filled in the gap. They've filled in the skills gap to a degree, and they've just tried to muddle on because we've had more prime ministers than I've had, sneezes in the last 10 minutes. It's ridiculous that we've just gone into complete chaos as a nation.
Well, we could
it's
have
just
another one
obscene.
in there. Could be onto our next one
Don't
soon.
say that.
but again, just to really finish up on that one, is all you've done is replace one problem with another. Oh dear, are we talking about humans?
Yeah.
We're talking about the human condition on steroids.
Yeah.
I've always said that is what politics is. Politics is basically the human condition on steroids.
Yeah.
I mean,
what was it Hobbes said? The natural knife of man is nasty, poor, brutish, and short. I was like, well, mine's a bit long, if we're being honest.
well, at least we're not in that world, yeah. Anyway, I suppose we should move on to our final topic with all that said, which is we're actually going to talk about the Tories, despite not talking about the the other two bigger parties. Well, quite. But I think this was one that you noticed, Patrick. Kemi Badenoch is planning a huge reshuffle that is supposed to be root and branch changing up her shadow cabinet, which, who could we name in that? Mel Stride, but I feel like I'm the only person who could cite him. Obviously, Kemi Badenoch, but I don't know anyone else. I can't remember. Chris Philp, actually, is probably the third one.
Yeah.
But,
Can I just mention Priti Patel?
I didn't think she still. I forgot she had a seat, to be honest. So Priti Patel.
Yeah, she popped up in the Commons on Wednesday at PMQ. So I was like, oh, she's still there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a funny one.
It is. When we were talking about what we were going to discuss, you mentioned the Tory reshuffle. I said, the deck chairs, because it is literally the deck chairs on the Titanic. Like, you can move them around as much as you like, but
there's been a
they're not
bounce.
tackling the key issue.
But there's been a Badenoch bounce apparently, which if you look at Gorton and Denton, certainly no, dead.
Yeah, that's true. But I will say though,
which it is Gorton and Denton.
Yeah, if we move away from the northern Tory problem and look at the southern Tories, the more kind of Kent and the Windsors and that kind of area, they're still holding on pretty strongly. If you look at a lot of the local council elections going on in the background, they're not surging, but they're not dying.
No.
They're not dying like everybody's been said that they're going to die since, 2015? I mean, how many times have we had, this is the year the Tories are going to end? I mean, at some point, you sound like the madman in the street with a sandwich sign going with a bell. Like, that's what you sound like at this point. I
was going to say, it's where Reform are quite clever with their phrasing. They don't say they're going to die. They'll say they're going to cease being a national party, which is much closer to the truth. So good on Reform for that comment.
Because the Reform need the Tories alive. That's the reality. They've got the machine. They've got the machine, basically. They've got the reach. The Reform don't have it. And if Starmer falls before, the next general election is supposed to be, Reform have a big problem. They don't have anything, not in the size that they're going to need to turn the ship around. Ironically, for a Titanic metaphor, but there we go.
Well, fair. I mean, whenever I've been canvassing and I have seen Tories, there are still a fair few people who still canvass for them. Usually pensioners, but can't really say a lot about that as a Reform canvasser either. Because
I don't think any political party apart from the Greens can say that at the moment.
The Greens are all students. Yeah, every single Green Party activist I've seen has been younger than me, so fair enough there. But but this reshuffle, exactly who's going to replace who is obviously doesn't say yet. But the reasoning behind it is to buy off Katie Lamb, which is an interesting one because she's a new one from 2024. But is largely seen as kind of the almost not protege, sort of almost mentored by Robert Jenrick. a sort of an heir apparent, and sort of the almost the woman Gemric, who obviously was firmly to the right of everyone else in the party, and probably hence part of the reason he moved over to Reform. And Katie Lamb was close to him, and now that he's gone over, well, we're still waiting for all these defections, but I reckon we'll see them closer to the time where you get to local elections.
She's been rumoured to be going for a long time, hasn't she? She's been the one that's been like, oh, she's like the new Suella. Will she, won't she? The hokey-cokey reformer, as I like to call them.
Well, quite. So, no, there's a few who are on defection watch, and obviously, apparently they only have until May, but no doubt that'll be extended. But
we see, this is the thing. As you say, Katie Lamb was she was brought in, brought in. She was elected in 2024. I mean, up until the last few months, I'd never heard of her. Didn't know who she was. It's an odd one. But what I would add to everything that's just been said there is that the trouble is, and I'm thinking of certain other parties, including some recently insurgent ones. The trouble is, if you want to hate, you need an enemy. So then you have the friend-enemy distinction here going on, as somebody else we've talked about before likes to mention every so often. But that's the thing, you see, if you're going to have I say hate, I mean, look, maybe that's the wrong way of putting it. It works in other capacities as well. If you're going to have a campaign against something, then there needs to be something to campaign against. And if there isn't,
to stand for something as well, that would rather be helpful.
But my point is that if there isn't, you're going to have to invent one.
Yes.
And so people do. This is, again, human condition on steroids. This is politics.
The problem I think Kemi's got is she's turning into William Hague very quickly. Oh, we like William Hague, but we're never voting for the Conservatives. Her polling numbers are recovering faster than the parties are. So people like Kemi. How many times have you heard that on the circuit these days?
Far too much,
but I'm never voting for the Conservatives. That is the problem that she's got. Her image is quite strong. The party has not rehabilitated itself, and I don't think it will in time for the next general election, no matter when that is. I think the Tories are dead till not this general election, but the one after. Usually it's 2 parliamentary terms, I think.
It is usually, you're right. But you see, this is the thing. When Sakir got in as Labour leader, I think he thought he was going to be William Hague, if you see what I mean. He was, that he was there. I think this is one of the reasons why he's been, as Wolves, we don't normally express a political opinion, but I'm the editor and I'm allowed to, and it's my party and I'll try if I want to. So, I think the reason he's been this useless as a prime minister is that he never expected to become one.
Agreed.
Do you know why he ever became an MP?
No, actually.
No, I don't.
He was ushered in, I think, under the auspices of Ed Miliband in 2015, something like that.
Yeah, because he thought he was going to win that and he needed an Attorney General. So get the head of the CPS in there. Yeah. That was the reasoning behind it.
Is that actually reason? Oh, I didn't know that. But
so I've heard,
talk about the blind leading the dumb.
So I've heard, yeah. I mean, he came in,
which actually would make sense because Ed Miliband has kind of filled in the void that Morgan McSweeney has left. He's the one that's in Starmer's ear. So actually, that does rather make sense that their union isn't as hostile as you were led to believe. If you're right there. I didn't know that, actually. I just presumed he was like Liz Truss. He just wandered into the wrong building and signed a piece of paper.
No,
I think it's more, though, what it tells you, though, to pick up on both of those points, is that, in fact, it's the in-crowd, isn't it? It's the people who know each other and will promote each other to different positions because they can, for reference, please see under Lord Mandelson. The former Lord Mandelson. But this is how it happens in politics. It's somebody who knows somebody else and then says to somebody else, "Oh, I know this guy. He's all right. You should get him in or her."
I will say though, it's not just politics that has this like jobs for the boys thing. Every industry has it.
Oh yeah.
You know, and everyone always looks down on politics for having it. I'm like, everywhere I've ever worked, and no matter what it is, everybody knows everybody because it's what you do for a living. And you know, if you have a friend in a different company and there's an opening in yours and they're out of a job, you put the word in. You know, it's kind of what you do. But we have this problem in this country, and we put politicians on pedestals literally to knock them off it. We hold them to such a ridiculous high standard, pull away the stool and go, well, we told you were terrible. And then we're suddenly also shocked that good people don't go into politics. Like, it's, you know, I find it just bizarre, I have to admit, because everyone lost their minds this week because MPs gave themselves a pay rise. Most MPs would earn 3 times the salary in the private sector, if there's still a private sector by the time they've left. You know what I mean? Like, they're accountants, they're lawyers, they're in rather solid.
Possibly true of the Tory party.
So
with the Labour party,
the reality is, you know, I mean, not the front bench, let's be real, but yeah, you know, everybody else. But, you know, I do find it funny that, you know, we treat them so terribly and then we wonder why we have terrible politicians.
That's an excellent point. That's an excellent point, and I think it is one that's worth noting, alongside my other critique of, you know, their primary skills in getting elected. Trouble is, they get there, and then they find it. You know, I was told once by my former local constituency MP, in fact, up here in Cheshire, that basically everyone has to get into some kind of group, which is why you have the TRG and the ERG, for example, in the Tory party, who both of which are obviously very different from one another, but they're tribes. Politics is tribalistic, and if you don't have a tribe, you won't survive. So,
answer to that, Keir Starmer. He is a man without a tribe. Yet rose to the highest office because he didn't have a tribe.
Well,
I think he's the counter to it. You know, because he wasn't a Corbynista, because he wasn't soft left, because he wasn't this. Oh, basically, he said he wasn't anything because, you know, the man's never had a thought between his ears. So therefore, he was able to rise because he promised everything to everybody. His problem is when he won, and I agree, I don't think he thought he was going to win. He suddenly had to start paying up on all the things he promised, and he doesn't know how to do it. And that seems to have been the big wall for Labour, because he kept saying change, change, change. Nobody said changing from what to what and how. That is what we need to start asking.
It turned out it was mostly just changing the colours from, you know, a navy blue of the Tories to a red of the Red Socialist Labour Party, and that's pretty much it. Well, I mean, then it turned out the scandals were worse.
Well, it's the age-old phrase in politics, isn't it? We're not them.
Yeah. My favourite thing is just on that, sorry, that he spent £20,000 on glasses and apparently didn't see Peter Mandelson coming.
Well, hey. We were talking about the Tories, you know, but they're so boring. We've instantly gone off.
I mean, this is the thing. Even I was like, you know, I was a Tory from the age of 15. I left this year, and I'm like, I don't care about them. I don't care about them. They're not a factor anymore. Not realistically. Till they get their own house in order, i.e. sacking most people who run the house, they're not going to be a political force in this country because they never learned the lesson. You know, they try to say anything at the moment. People go, you had 14 years to fix this.
Oh, that's still going.
No one's listening to them. Yeah.
I will say at this point as editor and point out that this is not Wall's official policy.
No. I'm somewhat a rogue. I'm somewhat of a Mandelson figure, apparently. I'm a rogue element. Yeah. But it's interesting we talk about defections. Have you seen that so many people are going to the Greens, apparently? Like, so many councillors are on a hop, skip, and a jump.
I've heard that there's a few Labour MPs as well that maybe Zach Polanski is claiming would go over, which I don't really blame them for. I mean, Gorton and Denton was pretty devastating for Labour, but then again, a lot of, you know, I think there's something that a lot of people don't realise. There's actually there's personal sacrifice to it as well, because this is your social life as well, being part of the party. I have to say, it was really noticeable for me when Robert Jenrick went over. Mark Francois, I think he was interviewed on Talk, and he was nearly breaking down crying,
he went
to be honest.
Apoplectic at it, didn't he?
Yeah, this guy drove 2 hours for one of my birthdays. I can't believe he'd do this to me. It's like, God,
it's one of those. No, seriously, it's one of those, isn't it? Because it's like, you know, again, we were talking about tribal loyalty before. And there is that personal element to it. And there is that element of why have you, as you say, like, why have you done this to me, to us? Why have you done this to us? Yeah. But it's also very.
Just have a very kind of, alas, poor Yorick, I knew him well. As I'm much more a plague on all your houses kind of guy at the moment.
Well, and it's sort of too brute as well. You have that side of things, but I also think it's interesting, isn't it? I say Peter S. because you were just mentioning about defections and the spate of them and the likelihood of them. Well, isn't it easier? Quite a lot easier. Instead of actually having to stand a candidate to get elected,
just get one in.
You can just nick one who's already been elected.
Or just do the Labour Party and cancel the elections. That's easy enough.
Well, yeah, quite. Like I say,
we keep presuming we're going to have a general election. We keep saying it. There's a war on now. Let's be real. Are we not thinking that Lord Hermer, is thinking about how we could get around certain representations of the People Act? Because, again, that was a huge scandal, massive U-turn, and everyone went, oh, well. I mean, the guy tried to cancel elections. The Electoral Commission lost their minds, which is not difficult.
Yeah,
and therefore, it was the day before the judgment. Like, it was absolutely astounding to me.
And it's reform that put them back on. So hopefully they can manage that with the general election. So
I said that very clearly. Reform deserve all the credit for that. They actually did something.
I find it amazing that the Tories and Lib Dems have tried to take credit for that when there were councils of both stripes trying to cancelling elections as well. But
it's called self-awareness. It's shockingly lacking in SW1.
Which I am actually quite. I am genuinely quite shocked about that. But I should be used to it now, really.
Yeah. Again, what do you call it? The clown decade.
Clown decade. Well, quite.
Well, and what basically happens is various PR teams will be put in place to find how can we best spin this. That's what it is. I mean, you
just pretend we stop them.
See, that's their job. They come into the office, and their job for that day, or maybe that couple of days, or half the week, or whatever it is, they will be tasked with not telling the truth. They will be tasked with how do we spin this, and that is their job, which they get paid for, and also pays for their rent.
Oh,
so are they going to do it? Yes, they're going to do it. Is it ridiculous? Yes. If I were doing that, I would be, I've been looking for work for some time now, but if I were to be doing that,
I just like to point out that the Director of Communications, they've had 5 of them at number 10. So, again, they're not magicians at this.
All I'm saying is if I were to be doing that, I would be needing to find something around the place that was sharp enough to slip my own wrists with, because I couldn't live like that. But they apparently can. I'm surprised that therefore some people of that nature put out, shall we say, what they put out. It's no surprise to me.
My problem is, though, we are hurtling back towards we're not that guy politics. And that is the next general election. Vote for me because I'm not that. At what point do we stop doing that?
Well, I'm praying that Reform don't do that, which they do have a tendency to do that, don't get me wrong. But
Reform, if they're not careful, are going to alienate everybody.
Yeah, well,
if they're not careful.
Well,
because they keep leaning very into the centre, which annoys the base, and the centre go, "Well, we don't want you anyway."
It's
that's an interesting point, isn't it? Because what we talked about before was certain kinds of politicians and/or their advisors who just want to please everybody, and what Peter B is saying now is that perhaps that's what they think is the optimum strategy, is piss off everybody.
Yeah.
It's an interesting.
Look at tactical voting. Look at I always say it's Denton and Gorton. Is that the right way round?
No, it's Gorton and Denton. And I'm not sure why.
Yeah, but I look at that one. It was literally vote for us because we're not them, or we're the only ones that could beat them. If that is replicated at a national election, you're going to get 4 people at a whippet turn out to vote. That's the reality.
I suppose my argument with the by-election is what else can you actually say? Because you can't. you don't have a manifesto you can run on because you're not going to implement it. So what else? To be fair, what else can you actually do in a by-election? Like it is a protest.
Yeah,
At the end of the day, you are the protest vote.
It is by definition of a protest vote. But all the establishment parties got ruined because this is an angry electorate.
And it was great.
And it's that anger that's driving. But don't forget, what's the thing? When you let the dogs off the leash, eventually they might come round and bite you back.
Yeah, someone's going to bite you, aren't they?
Well, that's right, and you won't get peace through anger. That much is certain. I'll tell you one thing that was quite funny, and they'll probably never publish me again. But when Con Home reported on this, it was one of these things because the journals all went crazy over Gorton and Denton. The successful lady Hannah Spencer for the Greens, Come Home initially reported it was Hannah Denton. And it's one of those, and I know you know what I mean, Peter B. This is a 1 a.m. error. This is this is not an example of poor journalism as such. It's just when we were
we're all running on caffeine and nervous.
He's now the online editor of GB News, I believe, but he used to be the senior political correspondent at the Express. And as he once said to me, quite rightly, we're all blind to our own work. And
yes,
absolutely right to say that. And of course, I know that because I've been a translator for 20 years, and all translators are also proofreaders for one another for precisely this reason. But yeah, I did think that was quite funny.
Yes, I have to admit.
Hannah Denton, we'll have to create a profile for her. She'll have to have a Facebook page.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what's also annoying is because of Purdy rules and stuff, you have to keep saying the names. So by the end of the by-election, you're like, I don't like these people. I just don't like their name.
Did you
like,
you not like hearing Sir a lot?
Count Binface. Try saying that at 3 a.m. And when you're very tired, Count Binface. That is a very careful one that you say very carefully.
Well, certainly.
Much like Jeremy Hunt, I imagine, yes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. There was a famous moment, wasn't there, where somebody did...
I forgot where his wife was from.
Yes. No. But I mean, there was somebody who did, one of the more famous presenters on, I think it was the BBC, did manage to mispronounce...
C instead of an H, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yes,
it was very funny. But this is the thing that people don't realise, and I'll just, I'll take the liberty of pointing this out, despite the fact it's not really my job. You look at Peter; he's actually been a presenter, and he's had to been dealing with sports fixtures, and
really, what did I do to you to bring this up?
All I'm saying, is that when you're live, you're thinking very, 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 very fast. And people don't understand this. You see, people who watch this coverage and whatever it is, what program it is that you're putting on, they don't realise all the mess that goes on behind the scenes. Like when I was on talking, I was supposed to be talking about Ed Miliband, then former shadow energy secretary, and his stuff about banning the North Sea oil and gas stuff, which they've now done. I was supposed to be brought in to talk about that. Now I was going to the tube station, and just as I get to the tube station, I'm about to lose signal. The producer rings me and says, "Oh, by the way, we're going to talk about Nicola Sturgeon being arrested as well." So, oh, for God's sake! So now I'm going to have to read up on that. I was across the news cycle, but I'll just download the BBC story for some details.
I'll go one better on that one.
I've got something else coming. I
was brought in to talk about what was his name? The Tory MP that was caught watching porn, and it was tractor porn. Do you remember that one? I was brought in to talk about that. They started asking me about the extension of buy one get one free in supermarkets. I have never waffled more in my entire life than that moment. I didn't even know it was a thing. I think the person who was on next to me was also called Peter, and on the auto cue they'd scrolled too far down and read the wrong question for the Peter. And I was looking at the presenter going, "You've got the wrong guy. Move on." Like politicsy thing,
But just let me continue. So I was doing that on the tube, and what I should have been doing is refamiliarising myself with my own notes. So there was that. Then I get to the studio. I've gone through makeup. We're about 2 minutes away from going live. And then they come out and tell me, oh, yeah, we're going to talk about Boris Johnson stepping down as well. You see? So it's one of those where, I was bounced twice. And but, for that was an 11-minute appearance. For the first 4.5 minutes of it, I am bull-essing. And you see, it's one of those. And the funny thing was, I showed this to a friend of mine who's my oldest friend. I've known him for a quarter of a century. And I didn't tell him this bit. I just said, let's watch this. And about halfway through that first 4.5 minutes, he goes to me, Patrick, you're bull-essing, aren't you?
Yeah.
Because he knows me well enough to tell. But I don't think the rest of the audience would, because this is part of the art of it. You have to look like you're supposed to know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, the reason that you bring up the sports section is I know nothing about sport. I can sit and talk to you about the intricate workings of Parliament. I can talk to you about procedures and all the rest of it till the cows come home. You asked me who was playing in the football last night. I will go, there was a game on. And they left me in charge of a sports section that went on a lot longer. I said it would be the death of me. It nearly was. Honestly, it was just horrific. However, because I was that bad, you kind of have to play it off. But, yeah, never get me to talk about sport. Somehow, growing up between Manchester and Liverpool, two very big sport areas, I know nothing. I don't know how I've done this. I don't know anything.
Oh,
I'm the same. But you see, sometimes they do bring, different talents over. I mean, Johnny Gould, for example, on Talk. He's
also annoyingly, they have a Talk Sport radio station next to me.
and that's usually what he's doing. But they also bring him on for politics. I think normally when they can't, as in to present, I think normally when they can't find anyone else, or people are off ill or that kind of thing. But he is actually very good. He's multi-skilled in that area, so he can talk about other kinds of things as well. So I was glad of that experience, and it's always good to have funny stories. But it's just one of those. I think. Probably yes. We should.
I think we've made this a bumper episode enough. I tried talking about the Tories half an hour ago.
Can we afford?
well, I tried talking about the Tories half an hour ago, and we decided everything else was more important. So.
Well, I'm sure we will find the time to do that next time.
Well, we'll see. But
probably something even more funny will have happened.
Well, fingers crossed. We'll see. Well, I'm hoping for a slow news week, but we'll see. Anyway.
Well, now you've done it.
Well, thank you, Patrick and Peter, for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me, as always.
All right.
At least it sounded like a pub conversation.
Quite well. It very much did. It very much did. So
the only thing we didn't do was plan a holiday.
We did that earlier. This is the boring stuff now. Anyway, with that,
that's true. Yeah.
Thank you all very much for listening, and until next time, goodbye.